Right, good evening, folks. Here we are for episode 9 of Sip and Sketch. The idea is that I'm going to walk you through step by step in order to create an artwork on an A4 piece of paper. This is a little bit bigger, this is A3, but you're just going to be using a very simple Pilot fineliner. It is an ink-based, water-based ink pen, Pilot fineliner. You can find it on pilot.com, and the idea is that we will do some drawing for 20 minutes tonight. We're not going to go very long, as next week is our final episode in this step-by-step creating an artwork out of stick figures in ink. And it's been really exciting going on this journey with you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through creating something that's a little bit different this week, and in half an hour we should end up with an artwork. So the idea is that we really want to try and create the option for, I'm putting in some little dots here which show where the middle is, where the left is, where the right is, where the top and bottom is in terms of the quadrants, because in order to be able to draw we usually see where things are compared to other things. And so, if we have that being the middle and this being the bottom quarter, what we can do is, in the middle of that, we're going to have our starting point there. And what we're going to do is go across to the left-hand quarter there, and it will be a nice straight line that we can join those two. I'm going to go over that straight line so it's a little bit darker so that you can find it a little bit easier. And one of the exciting things about this is that if you get it there and thereabouts, you're good to go. There's not really much that is going to be too complicated. And there have been some interesting jokes that this isn't a series of stick figures becoming something at all. You need to have a master's in drawing in order to be able to complete that. So I'm not going to take too much offense to that, but that's we are ideally just trying to make life a little bit simpler in terms of thinking that you are not able to draw if you're not an artist. That's not the case at all. We write every day, we see every day. Now if we go from the bottom of your mark, the end, up to halfway, you want to take that same distance across the other side towards the right. So we would have, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a line straight up to that. Nice and simple. As I said, we're going away from our landscaping foliage today because there was my fearless leader at the institution that I teach said that the last week's exercise of drawing forest was a bit of a nightmare because everyone struggles with foliage, and I get that. That is not always the easiest thing to do. And so we are moving towards something a little bit more simpler today. And I want to tell you a story about something that happened a couple of years ago. If we go now up to the same height on the other side here, and we go straight up and make a little dot there, we go straight up, we will join to be at the same height there. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then just next to that what we can do is a tiny little line that's going to go up to the left. And you should see a tiny little line, so it's about a quarter of the, or a third maybe. And then what we're going to do is bend it out a little bit to the left, and we're going to create a nice big V with a flat bottom. Now what we're drawing here is a little dhow that we may find on the beach somewhere. And boats are always a little bit tricky to do because you find that how do we do this big gap in the middle and get that foreshortening going? And I was very lucky to travel to the sort of middle territories of northern Mozambique. So if you go halfway up Mozambique, just south of halfway up, so it's a lovely country. And there's something called the Mozambique horse safaris. What we're going to do is jump from the front of this bow here. We're going to take a deep curve first, and then we're going to go up to the back. Just like we did those telephone lines a long time ago. what we're going to do is we're going to drop down, and it's going to be about halfway from the top. If we were to draw a line from the top, we're going to go halfway down, and we're going to drop down from the point here, from the bow, drop down to that, and we're going to do straight up to the other side there. So if you have a look at it, you can try and do that one line, and you should be able to drop it down. And I was able to, when we were up in this just north of Vilanculos, there's an author of the story 104 Horses. Mandy Redsloff wrote a book called 104 Horses, and how they, during a lot of people moving from Zimbabwe in the late 2000s, when they were struggling a little bit there was a mass exodus of 4.5 or so million Zimbabweans left the country, and this family took people's horses that they had left. Folk had left as they left horses with this family, and they walked 104 horses from Zimbabwe across the border into Mozambique. It's a fascinating story, a fantastic read, and you can go there now. What we're going to do is do a little bow, a little D at the front here, and what we'll do with that is we're going to try and take a line straight from the back here, and we're going to meet up. If you want to give your gunnel on the far side there a little bit of a curve, you can. So we get them to meet up there. So what we're doing is we are seeing the inside of the boat by the gunnel on this side dropping down and going out, going up to the top and dropping off there. So we meet at the side there. And it tells a story about this horse safaris where they have individuals that work, and I'm going to put the story 104 Horses by a memoir of a farm and family, African exile. You do need to have, by Mandy Redsloff, it's an interesting name, RETZLAFF. You do have to have some tissues on hand, because anything to do with saving animals is one that requires a little bit of strength. But you go there and you just listen to this beautiful story, and you can ride horses on the beach. It's those Nicholas Sparks novels coming to a reality, Nights at Redent. And we're going to double up this little D at the front here by having a little gap there. We're going to just double it up and try and get that same sort of shape, because we'll have that gunnel at the front there, then have a line just at the front of where your D started. We get a line coming straight down. And just a shout out to the Matthews, who were originally from the Redsloff's part of the world, and not the eastern highlands of Zimbabwe, but heading towards the eastern highlands on the watershed. And I know they had a lot to do with helping out with people that were struggling and animals that were struggling at that time. And they're all you, Matthews, always log in and follow us on a Monday night, which is great. It's always nice to have you with us. What we're doing is these little ribs, the ribs of a boat are coming down. We're doing one and equally spacing them apart. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 in there, but you can cut yours in half and then separate that and separate and separate. You can have them sort of maybe a finger's width apart. And so what we did was, my wife was just finishing up in the UK, and I picked her up at the airport, and we decided, let's go. She had read this book in the UK. I'm doubling up a line next to those ones that you've just made. And we can double up at the front, right at the front there. So we've got those lines quite close together. And said, let's go and visit these people. And it's a little bit of a drive. You can do it over 2 days. Now we're going to do a third line next to those. But once you get there, it's these vast open spaces, which I found was the perfect place. The reason I'm telling you this story is a perfect place to practice drawing boats, because there are these dhows, which are these fishing boats that sit at all sorts of angles, and you get these flat ocean shores that just go out forever. So you get these very deep beaches that half a kilometer, sometimes a kilometer from the ocean at low tide till the dunes, and these boats sit in that sand. Now what we want to do is to now create a little bit of tone in here. So the left hand gap you want to scribble in. By scribbling in the left-hand gap, we get light on the front and dark on the side. There we go. And the Resloffs are such hospitable people, and they're doing a great thing there still, allowing for folk to arrive and ride their horses. And you need to be a competent rider. I'm not. I'm definitely not. But obviously Laura, my wife, who's been brought up and chasing horses, only just recently got her own horse, which is very exciting. But obviously grew up with a passion for animals, and what we're doing is following what's called the leading line at the top here, and we're going to just repeat those. Had a passion for animals, and if you go to one of these faraway places, having read the book first, that is what is the completion of, I believe, to be a journey. And the way that we've been drawing together, we saw the completion of a journey this week when somebody sent me a picture that they did in pen and ink that they had taken a couple of years ago and thought, well, how am I going to create this into, and gave it a go in this pen and ink. And it was just the most beautiful thing to see that this person had taken what we do on every Monday evening and applied to something. And it'd be really, really cool if you could send me pictures of perhaps something that you've applied, this whole concept of pen and ink, because that's the idea, is that we're giving you a little bit of a skill to be able to take away with you. If we can go down and drop below our line at the front here, and then go up and eventually get it to meet again, we can see the full face of the gunnel at the front. Let me do that one more time. We're going to drop down from the front, we give it a little bit of a gap, we drop down, and then move up again here. And we see the full face of it. And there's nothing really quite like, I had some cameras with us, and watching Laura belt down the beach with a herd of horses was just one of the most spectacular moments. And then to watch that evening the waters come in and pick up these boats, and they start lulling in the water, and that flapping and the smell of the ocean, and you can get crabs out of the sand. Now let's take a line that is going to be perpendicular to this base, meaning it's at right angle is ish. Now my maths is quite terrible there, but we want to get it leaning over to the right a little bit. And we're going to take that line up until it's just shy of the top. So we get a nice straight line going up. And you can run that up and down. You're going to run it over the gunnel strut supports that you had inside that boat there. And you get a nice firm line there. And that's looking good. And the idea is that if you can, in 20 minutes, we are about 12 in now, in 20 minutes you want to be able to catch a scene. That's the whole concept of what I've been trying to put across in these last 10 weeks, is the idea that you can capture something very quickly and to have efficient tools with you, like the little pilot fine liner and a little simple paintbrush with the water. And you'll see this evening I've only got a little bottle cap of water. It's the simplest possible way. And if you're here, you can just dip it in the ocean. So I'd like you to jump out there and have a look at Mozambique horse safaris. It's a really wicked adventure. I'm going to take a line now that if we are near the top of this, near the top, not on the top, just below the top, and what we're going to do is run from the top left-hand side of your page, just before the top, we're going to run a line that's going to come straight down and just go just past the bow of the boat, and it's going to curve down. And we have a look at that again now. Have a look at the scene. Before you do that line, you'll have this boat in front of you, and you're going to think, what's my marker point at the front, at the back, or at the front and at the back there? And you see, where's the back of the boat? It is here. And if I were to go straight up and meet the edge of my page, it would be there. If I were to go straight up with the front gunnel and the bow of the boat, it would be there. And so I would be able to make a mark and say, you know what, that's about the same sort of distance. So now I've got to finish there. I've got to start just in front of the stern of the boat, so I'm going to then take a gentle line down there. So the whole time we are looking at where things are compared to others. And that allows for a little bit of accuracy and clarity and balance. Okay, so we've got the stern, we've got the mast going up. In the middle of that, Let's take another line from the middle of that. We're going to go up and get it to bounce back down, up and down. So we get this upward bow going there. Because now we're drawing the sail that's just sitting there. It's just been dropped and we're about to set sail there. And what we've also got is from the base there, just come in from the base a little bit. And what we're going to do is again from the top, just come in from the top a little bit, and we get a little bit of a curve going in again there. All right, so we've got our idea that sort of triangle is blowing. Your ends of sails are never straight triangles. They've always got a little bit of a curve in them because they're going to be catching a little bit of that wind. Now, you could put straight lines in here, but there aren't those straight lines in reality. What we get is sort of folds as they blow. And so what we'll do is we'll pick up a little bit of ink like we've done in the past, pick up ink and put it into clouds in the background. We'll do the same thing for the mast and sail there a little bit later. Can we drop down now and just do a thicker pole at the top where we run down? We just double up the size of that. All right, and what you can do is you can also scribble that in, give a little bit of content there. There we go. That's actually quite nice. And what you'll also get to do is these little ums and ties. It's going to drop down a little U, and die, and then tie. And we can go a long way and then tie and drop down again and tie again on that stem. Go and tie. And tie, and then eventually we get to the front and we tie it there. That's actually really quite wicked. And then again, we've got this base at the bottom here. That's also going to give us a little bit of a sense of depth. All right, on the back of the boat, let's just color that in. Very nice and simple there. Let's get that blocked in. All right. And let's put a little horizontal marker on just below the top there. Let's double that up, give ourselves a bit of a marker. And what they do is they have these little rudders that click in this top at the back here and they drop out. It's such an exciting journey to go on. Let's halve that at the top and just bring a line down and another line down the center of the back of that stern. And we can just shade that in. It just so that it gives us a little bit more information that is a vertical shape, which we will contrast with the foreground bow of the boat here. Okay, now this is where it's actually quite exciting. What we can do is we can split this into three. So we have top, we have bottom, third and 2/3. And we can do the same at the front here. Top, bottom, 1/3, 2/3. And what we want to do is we want to run our planks that are going to go up and they're going to flare out, and then we get them to meet together here and they flare up again. So you get a mixture of blending it in here. Sometimes what happens is if you run it along the gunnel with a little bit of space and then come out the back, you lose that sense of perspective in this middle part here. And so what we can do is we can split that line again and just go up there, and we can split the middle one and go right into the middle of it, and go out the top, and then again with the top one. Sneak in under the gunnel there and go back up to the bow. And that compression allows us for a little bit of perspective there. Okay, so that's the very basic idea of our boat. Now what we're going to do is we're going to give a little bit of a reflection, meaning we do the opposite in the foreground here. So if that's sitting on the ground, we just do a line that's exact same. If you come in to halfway here, and we're going to go out at the same angle. So if it comes in, it mirrors and goes boom, straight out on the outside angle there. Don't worry about whether it's our little flick that we have at the bottom there. Same angle. You want to try and have that as an exact same angle there. And then the same at the back of the boat here. We're going to try and, it curves up to the left. Bends up to the left, doesn't curve up to the left. And what we're going to do is try and do exactly the same thing, but your pen is going to fall off the page a little bit as you come down off of that. And again, straight down off that center gunnel. It's going to curve off, it's going to fade off as you come down. All right. And the idea is, theoretically, if you pretend that that is the top of the gunnel here, there, and we find that that is the top of the boat there, you could turn your page upside down and redraw this whole thing, but that's a little bit of a hack. So you got a little bit of a leeway in that we want to just put a little bit of a curve in there to join those guys up. And you get a sort of reflection. Now, reflection sometimes is an extension, is an exaggeration, is foreshortened, depending on where you're standing. But if we can divide those then again into three, we really don't have time because the tide is perhaps coming in, or the fishermen are about to go out and they're like, please take your art nonsense away. We actually have got real world things to do. You have to be maybe quite quick. Let's join up these lines here. There we go. There we go. All the horses have been saddled up and you're ready to gallop down the beach. All right, and then again we just replicate the back stem coming up, and again we just scribble that in. Now there have been questions about how fast we go in this whole sip and sketch thing, and the idea is that sometimes I'm a little bit quicker in that I'm trying to get to the point where if it's similar, it's okay, because sometimes we try and be too detailed. I'll fill in these lines in the middle again. We sometimes get too detailed, too worried about the details, when actually the idea is that we're just making. And even if there's a couple of little mistakes in the making, we ended up really just going through the processes, and by making, you end up generating your own style. Now this line that's coming in from the mast is going to come off, and we're just going to drop that off. Let's not continue the whole mast. We're just going to get it to drop off a little bit there. So again, it's not going to go off the top of the page, off the bottom of the page. But then we've got this little gap as well here. So if we have an idea, how do I do that upside down to the right D? I want to come across the left here and find out where it comes off to the right as well. And then maybe get them to just do a subtle curve there. I'm going to do it quite lightly. I'm just going back and forwards quite lightly. And then maybe get it to run off. I'm not going to do the whole mast, the whole stem coming off the front there, because we'll probably have a couple of ripples that we will lose that reflection there. Okay, so that's where we're going to stop, and we're going to switch across to the water. We can come back and create a little bit more information in due course, but let's quickly grab our brushes. Have a sip of your tea. All right. And where we will pick up is just on the inside of our boat. We're going to go on the inside of the gunnel and pick up those lines. Inside of the gunnel, pick up those lines. And you avoid going over the white, clean shape that is on the front. So you'll go along those horizontal lines into the dark flare, but then leave a gap of where that line is coming down. So we get that strong contrast to happen between the vertical, the side, and the gunnel. The vertical, the dark side, and then the gunnel. That's actually really quite exciting. Then you go into the back, we can pick up a little bit more water, and here we go into the back, and we're picking up that dark. And what I would normally do is go straight into the same subject matter that's below it. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of time just to catch up if you are behind there a little bit. Remember that working with the water in the end, you really are just going over the drawing. You can't really do much more. All the water is doing is that it's going over what you've done. So if we take the brush and we just go vertically with this, let's go vertically straight down. If you go vertically, what it's doing is it's doing a straight reflection, because what we can also do is then take one or two lines off to the side, and they will create that horizontal marker. It's a very subtle line that just comes off the left-hand side there, but it establishes where that horizontal is. And now this is shiny sand or it's shallow water, either or. Okay, pick up a little bit more water. Let's establish that horizon a little bit, that marker where it meets the water a little bit more aggressively. Going backwards and forwards, we're picking up some ink here. Now I know the Matthews in the Malawi district will be able to relate to this, these boats sitting on the water here. And we get that going along the horizontal there. What we can also do now is just run your brush. Make sure that you leave the light of the gunnel at the top there. We want to leave that light totally, because there has to be that strong contrast on the top of the mouth and the nose there, the bow, and then as it comes along the gunnel there, nice starch shapes. And then again, the way that we would color in the reflection, I would also say let's do that vertically again. You want to be able to get as much information saying that this is all happening vertically, and we then run along the line of that other thing that we created there, along the edge of that. So we get this horizontal, and we get those horizontals and verticals to happen. And we can come off the right hand side again, run it past the boat, past the bow of that reflection. You then get it to be more than what that is. And the idea is that as this floats away here, you can pick up a little bit of ink perhaps from the back, and you get then that to float away from you do a little bit of a colouring. Let's look at this mask now. We can come back and have a look at how we could perhaps make that a little bit darker in due course. But let's look at this mask. We want to be able to pick up ink and not go back to the bottle top. So we've picked up ink on our pen. Now as this curves in and curves in and curves in, as it curves in, it's going to lose light there. So we'll drop down and create ink in the areas that it would create absence of light as it went and stitched and came in, as it went and stitched and came in, stitched and came in. So that would be similar to what we would be normally using for our where we would have come down and said, I want to make the shape of the sail by putting lines in. You can avoid that by making sure you've got a nice amount of ink that's going to run along this top beam, and then you take some of that ink down where that sail comes in and ties and then goes down. And you'll be able to pick up more at the bottom, and you can make the bottom part of this, you can pick up some ink and go horizontally, so that the bottom half of your sail might also be picking up a little bit of dark contrast there. Okay, so there we will have the very basics of getting a little bit of a boat on an adventure to finish off. And that's nice and simple. That's literally only 25 minutes worth of drawing. What we can do, I think, is just pick up a little bit of a tickle of a scribble at the bottom here, just to give the base of the boat a little bit more tonal variation. Because what that does, the shadow of a boat has always got less light than the top. And also we can come underneath in the sail here and also do a little bit of a scribble right to the back there. All right, and that might also give us just a little bit more information to say that's where we've got some information and there's a bit of a sail. All right, and that's that. So, all done and dusted in just under half an hour. That's pretty good going, folks. What you could do, if you've got a little bit of, you could pick up a little bit more ink here. We can cheat a little bit. If you wanted to put more of a horizon, you wanted to put more depth in it, you could pick up a little bit of ink that we've just put on, and we go in the background here, and you run horizontally. Pick up a little bit of this ink, and you can go wherever you might have a little bit of ink left over. You can pick it up and just run and just do a subtle line along the back there. I haven't been able to pick up enough ink. Let's scribble this in at the front here and really get a little bit of ink coming. And if we pick up a little bit of that ink, we can go and just create, perhaps if you wanted to, you could do that horizon there. All right. And that is that. The idea is that we're wanting to be able to get an essence of something, and the trick to this is that we see the inside by dropping the foreground gunnel, and we get some strong contrast at the back against the light at the front. Always get your light by having the top, the side, and the bottom. The top, the side, and the bottom, and then we have a triangle of light that turns down, and then your reflection is going to be dark. But why are we doing those reflections? You want to be able to have vertical and horizontal mark making, so it gets a little bit of a blur going. All right, and so that is that for this evening. And just remember that next week is the last week that we'll be doing this. And we look forward to having you with us there. So I'm just going to run you backwards a little bit here so that we can see the extent of a very big canvas that we're working on, which is 6 meters by 2 meters. And I'll show you a little bit of the progress of that. It is the biggest painting that we've ever had in the studio, and we are very much looking forward to getting stuck into that. It's going to be oil on canvas. I'm not going to give away the subject matter of it, but I will continue to post stuff about how that is making progress. That's a little bit also the reason we're tapping off our sip and sketch a little bit, because we're going to be working on the monster. His name is called Industry, and as I said, we'll post pictures along the way and talk more about where that is going across the oceans. And thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you for the finale next week, where I will also be doing a little painting demonstration at the end and give you the tools and techniques of being able to do this on your own. And we look forward to you posting those things as we do that in the future. Thank you for joining us.